Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jean Catalina from the Group 7, together with my group mates Cristina Javier and Rudolph Sagada. We're going to discuss the Chapter 13, which is the Women and Education. So before we start, kindly please answer the following questions, or the motivational exercises rather. So the answer was being highlighted with the color, like women, gender issues, laws, sexual violence, education, future, bullying, fight rights, and the culture. So, how was your score? So in chapter 13, Women and Education, the chapter that we'll be going to discuss is all about the gender and education, the importance of education, an international perspective, the Philippine laws on gender responsive and gender fair education, the gender and development markers in education, gender issues in education, and last is the future steps looking forward. At the end of this chapter, we as a student should be able to learn this: how to identify the major problems women facing in the education sector, how we can explain the value of the equality of education for women, and last is how we name the policies that protect the rights of women in education.
Hi everyone, we are Group 7. Our topic is Chapter 13 about the gender and education. Gender and education. Education is a basic right, one that is essential for the progress of society. It's basic right of everybody to have an education because as a human who's living in this society, education is very important in every aspect of our life. This mandated in the past decade by United Nations to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. Gender is bottom aspect in education in the past because it can influence an individual experience and it can affect a person's access to quality education. Example, in other countries, women are still fighting for right to education and some are struggling for the basic privilege to take up a non-traditional course. A course that is not usually associated to a particularly gender role. Here in the Philippines, LGBTQ plus a community is a gender that's still fighting for their right to accept by society. But in terms of education, everyone have the right. So, through these assessments, one may realize that gender parity does not mean gender equality. The positive effects of education on girls create more just and equitable society. The benefits include better economic opportunities, delayed marriage, reduced fertility, better sexual and reproductive health and rights, and equality and empowerment. As we tackle and explore this chapter, we will explain the gender and education in formal institutions, in both theoretically and in practice. The discussion on the issues surrounding gender and education are connected to a previous chapter on women's way of knowing. The importance of education, an international perspective. The Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights stresses that education is everyone's fundamental rights. It's something necessary to fulfill one's human potential. because in the past not all can access education, especially those not stable in life. But if you are birthed in a wealthy family, then education is not to you. Everyone value education because this is the development of human persons. The education is very important. It's a power tool for social transformation because it highlighted how structures and process of education governance shape policy and practice, opportunity and outcomes. Within this structure, education is a priority sector mentioned in gender literature in the Philippines currently. Gender issues in education include non-sexist curriculum, non-sexist language, freedom in career options, and the removal of all forms of discrimination. Education and the Beijing Platform for Action 1995. Education is human right and an essential tool for achieving the goals for equality, development, and peace. The BPFA prioritizes women and men equal access to quality education. This law is viewed as key to helping people achieve their full potential. It also highlights the importance of investing in formal and non-formal education. The sulat mo lang tag-paspak BPFA education. Philippine laws on gender-responsive and gender-fair education. The Filipino high regard for education comes from the view that education is a pillar of national development and a primary avenue for social and economic mobility. Why pillar? Because pillar is a wings where the bird can't fly if the other side is broken. So, as human, if we don't have education or learning, we will be a statue like nothing at all. And another importance of education is ingrained in the Philippines Constitution. The state shall protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality education and all levels and shall take appropriate steps to make education accessible to all. Because women in the past have no right to go to school to have education. So, these numerous laws enforce and protect one's right to education. 1. Philippines Development Plan for Women 1989-1992 or PDPW. Number 2. Philippine Plan for Gender Responsive Development 1995-2025 or PPGD. And 3. Women's Empowerment, Development and Gender Equality Plan or Women Age Plan 2013. And 4. Magna Carta of Women or MCW.
Fast facts. So there are five strategic objectives of the UN Beijing Platform for Action in relation to education as follows. First is to ensure the equal access to education. So men and women have the rights in education. Next is to eradicate illiteracy among women. Third is to improve women's access to vocational training, science and technology, and continuing education. The fourth is the development of non-democracy education and training. And the last is to allocate sufficient resources for the monitor and the implementation of educational reforms. And the last is to promote a lifelong education and training for girls and women.
Gender and Development Markers in Education. The Gender and Development Markers of the NEDA's 2010 Revised Harmonized Guidelines is designed to help monitor the gender responsiveness of academic programs and projects. These assessments include whether the institution promotes gender-fair language in the classroom or educational materials, the existence of non-sexist career counseling, as well as the presence of a committee on decorum and investigation for sexual harassments occurring inside the campus. The Women Age Plan states that institutions can add and consider gender in all aspects of education, making the curriculum gender fair. Through training, teachers are sensitized to the different needs of all genders, with special consideration to women. The Magna Carta of Women is a revolutionary law that seeks to eliminate other issues women and girls face within education. The Section 13 of the MCW adopts the CEDAW by stating that women must have access to scholarships and trainings. By promoting gender-fair language and the elimination of gender stereotypes in education materials, the MCW states these three educational institutions to ensure the protection of women's education. 1. The Department of Higher Education or DepEd. 2. The Commission on Higher Education or CHED. And 3. The Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or TESDA. The Department of Labor and Employment or DOLE is also cited to provide women from marginalized sectors, indigenous persons or IPs, women in rural areas, women and migrant workers access to training as deemed necessary.
So our next topic is gender issues in education. As usually, gender parity is present in the Philippines. The Beijing Plus 20 non-governmental organization, or report shows that issues surrounding education have more to do with discrimination caused by cultural beliefs and gender biases. Example of this is early pregnancy, sexual harassment, lack of accessible facilities, and access to quality education. Actually, according to Thelma Quintanar in her 2013 text Gender Concern on Campus, an information kit for college administration and education, highlights the gender gaps in higher education to analyze the quality of education to women. That should include the issues like gender balance in the curriculum, sexual harassment in campus, sexism and sexist language, violence against women, or VA. Shows that previous identified issues in literature have yet addressed. So our first subtopic in gender issues in education is stereotyping as a violation of human rights. Education can be used as a tool to eliminate harmful gender stereotypes, but it can also serve as instrumental to keep the status quo because it may be used as a tool for external regulation and how specific gender acts. A 2013 report by the Higher Commissioner for Human Rights declares gender stereotyping as violation of one's human rights. Another is CEDAW states that there is limited awareness about stereotyping and its elimination. Gender stereotyping occurs in different institutions such as family, church, school, the state, and the media reinforce a biased perception of a certain gender role. For example, women are structured as caring and meek, and their roles are primarily homemaker and mothers. Another example are men in TV commercials are always portrayed as strong and dominant. However, if men and women view as this role, the possible other role of men and women can be shown in what they have. Issues in STEM: science, technology, engineering, and math. According to the Philippine Beijing Plus 20 report, the promotion of women's successes in the field of science and technology is lacking. Most scientists in various textbooks are male. So women in past need math and science training to have an active role in developing new technologies because the gap between men and women represented the gender. Next subtopic is non-traditional skills training. More support for women is still needed in the agricultural sector. It's vital for women to grab economic opportunities. This observation is the root of other issues in education such as the lack of women in STEM fields, as well as the lack of violation attached to jobs associated with feminine genders rules like caregiving. Because given the sex stereotype rule of women, they thought that this job is same as what you rule at home. Multiple burdens of women as a factor. Women often juggle to multiple roles, depending on what they are in society. Example that is, at a young age is already a mother, so she needs to work hard to attain her needs and the baby. Others girls are doing household chores while taking care of their younger siblings, while their parents are looking for economic opportunities. So all women face different challenges to complete their education. It's the necessity of material supports. We have so many public schools and other form of free education, but the problem is that the material support like financial support, school supply supports, and transportation are the main problem because even though we'll have public school, still not everyone can freely go to school and have education because of being poor. So if you have no problem on having an education, then you're lucky. Next subtopic is inhabited access to education. So there's so many issues in terms of access of a child to education because not everyone are in the city and no nearby school in their community. Example of this is those child in an urban community. The distance between school and their community is so far. Another is the calamities, natural disaster. They can attend school if there are calamities, like baha, bagyo, and etc. And another problem is that girls or children need to walk an hour just to get to school, and these are a high risk of street harassment. Topic is sexual and reproductive health and rights. This is another problem in women, is that the limited of sexual and reproductive health rights here in the Philippines. That also can affect one access to education because the increase of teen pregnancy here in the Philippines is the high major factor for the high dropout rate of a female student. Because of this, the law Magna Carta of Women and the Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Act of 2012, this law can help women to avoid being discriminated and to have a better education about sexual and reproductive health and rights. Another subtopic is gender fair textbook and program. According to 2015 PCW report for the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, DepEd makes numerous efforts to correct gender-based textbooks. But there's still a problem, which is the STEM. Issues that mentioned in the previous section is yet to be discussed. Next subtopic is inclusive education and alternative learning system. DepEd help out the youth and the older students who have yet complete their basic education by having alternate learning system. DepEd also pushes the creation of madrasa school for education of Muslim students and to indigenous people. This flexibility is necessary for students who were not able to complete their primary education due to the circumstances in financial issues, early pregnancy, relocation and displacement, and natural disaster. Another subtopic is male performance in schools. So statistics shows that male participation have increased and female decreased. So this disparity calls need to find out why there are large percentage of male students who drop out in school or did not enroll in the first place. What are the issues affecting boys in education? Another subtopic is sexual violence in education. So sexual violence in education is sexual harassment has been tackled extensively in the previous chapter about violence. However, the impact of this form of violence in education merits discussion. Sexual violence is a form of discrimination against mostly women. Women usually is the victim of violence and harassment in school, street, or any places. In another point, sexual harassment happens to men and members of LGBTQA+ also. And the Philippines had a law which is Anti-Sexual Harassment Law of 1995, defines sexual harassment as the demand of a sexual act or favor in an institution. Sexual harassment and violence in school are symptomatic lack of gender responsive in education. The Philippines has a long way to go in this regard.
So the last topic that we're going to discuss under the gendered issues in education is a gendered education and a gendered curriculum. So as we can see that the current curriculum has been shaped by years of highlighting men's experience and feast, while making women's experience invisible. So it has bias for us since bias for women since they're just highlighting the men's experience and feast. This has been led by one-sided view of the subject being taught, which promotes stereotypically masculine characteristics such as assertiveness and dominance. To address this, the curriculum must be transformed to incorporate both perspectives in all disciplines, recognizing women's studies as a legitimate discipline and helping them to understand their contribution in history. Next is the unspoken curriculum of the campus culture and gender. So in this following discussion, we're going to discuss the different issues that were being mentioned in passing by the development reports. These concerns contribute to socialization and how people continue to carry themselves in communities. Next is the microaggression and education. So what is microaggression? Microaggression is a subtle form of aggression towards a historically marginalized social group, which may be intentional or unintentional. It was first used by Darrell Wing-Sue and colleagues to map the racism people of color experience in the United States, focusing on the stress associated with maintaining their identities within a social stigma. So microaggression may also be applied to women who have been historically marginalized. Maybe they can be put downs, conscious or unconscious, that can cause psychological harm. self-doubt, and lack of confidence. So as we all know that when it comes to women, they are vulnerable, especially when they feel lack of confidence, and they don't have the they don't have the courage to stand alone. The microaggression theory frames the subtle biases students may experience in their school that have a large impact on how they act, see themselves, and even their careers later in life. It is also related to how boys and girls are supposed to act in the classroom and institution of education, contribute largely to gender, and hence the microagreement training, and the removal of sexist language and stereotypes in textbooks and teaching materials to reduce the effects of microaggression on young and impressionable children. So here are some of the examples of microaggression concerning the female gender. First is the sexual objectification of women. Next is the assumptions of inferiority about a certain gender, use of sexist language, denial of one's individual sexism, invisibility, denial of reality of sexism, subtle and discriminatory message communicated in school, exotication of women from a certain race. Next is the example that can be added for the awareness of microaggression against other genders. First is we should use of sexist or transphobic terminology. Next is the assumption of universal LGBT plus experience. Third is the endorsement of heteronormative or gender normative culture and behavior. Next is exoticization of LGBTs. Next is the discomfort with the approval of LGBTs, the denial of the reality of heterosexism and transphobia. Next is the assumption of sexual pathology and abnormality, especially in which people over sexualized LGBTs. And the last is the denials of one individual's heterosexism. So the next topic is all about bullying and relational aggression. RA 10627 defines bullying as a physical, verbal, electronic gestures or act directed towards a student that aims to place them in a state of fear or panic. It is often gender neutral, but women use emotional abuse in their fights, which is often more damaging than physical abuse. This abuse includes repetitive threats, brainwashing, and physical and emotional isolation. So Valerie Besag studied why girls fight more than boys and why there is more tension between girls, friendship, and relation. So she noted that quarrels occur more often between girls who previously had a close relationship than girls had no prior connection. That's why Curry, Kelly, and Pomeranz study and found that the relational aggression is often confrontational and can lead to girls engaging in negative behaviors such as facing each other based on their own beliefs and behavior. This can have a lasting impact on how women's relationships develop in the long term. So, if we can recall, during late 2010 or 2011, bullying is one of the reasons why there is a lot of students do a suicide, because they were being bullied not by just their classmates but also by their friends or some family relatives. Like they were being cat calls, like they were being fat, too dark of skin, curly hair, and other. So the next topic is all about the campus culture. So campus culture is that the form within a school based on the shared values of institution, which includes religious groups, LGBT communities, and other non-academic spheres of activity such as student activity. So the most important idea is that relational aggression, microaggression, and classroom culture can create a campus culture that is shaped by the compounded effect of these factors. So it is determined by those inside the school, from faculty, staff, teacher, and the student present. Campus culture is also influenced by the hidden curriculum in the classroom, which is shaped by institutional mechanism, implicit and explicit rules, norms, and symbols that have sexist ideas at their roots. Peer culture also contributes to campus culture as it plays an important role in gender socialization, from acceptable behavior and interaction between the same sex and opposite sex. The school can conduct educational seminars for parents to change this pattern, such as gender fair and gender responsive behavior. So the campus culture is not only the factors for student, but also from their teachers and the staff, or from the faculty or their classmates. And the last topic that we're going to discuss is about the future steps looking forward. So the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing has resulted in gains in education and still a lack of educational parity in education, from curriculum to programs and services, as well as campus culture and interaction. Gender equality is essential for a long-term goal. So looking forward is one of the steps that we should do every time that we have a problem.